Hello, it's Rebecca, and this weekend, just gone, me and a few of my friends went to Felixstowe Book Festival. I went last year, but just for the Saturday, and had a really good time. The weather was lovely, the people were lovely, saw lots of bookish type bits and pieces, went to some talks, and it was really fun. So I said I would definitely go back this year, but I would go for the whole weekend. So like I say, I went with a couple of friends and we stayed over night so that we didn't have to worry about driving home and all of that kind of stuff. And it was a really good weekend. I cannot stress enough just how much fun I had. Between us, I think we must have gone to every talk and every workshop and every panel and everything that was going on. There was so much going on in Felixstowe this weekend. There were children's activities in the library. The more adult talks were happening in a hotel, the hotel that we stayed in, which was actually really nice as well. And there was a town trail and books and, oh, just too much bookish stuff. So I will try to run through quickly what I did. It may take a little bit of time. So we got there on Saturday morning, and my first talk was to go and see Nikki French. And I only found out recently, maybe about a couple of months back, that Nikki French isn't actually a woman. It's a husband and wife, and it's Nikki Gerard and Sean French. And they are crime writers, and they write together, and I think that is absolutely amazing. And they work in such an interesting way. Nikki sits up in the attic, and Sean sits out in the shed, in the garden, and they write independently. They plan what their stories are going to be, and they plan everything down to the, the last detail. And then one of them will write the first paragraph and email it to the other one. And they'll go through it and look at it and either edit or add or change. And then write the second bit and send that all back. And it's kind of a ping pong of chapters and bits written. And I just think that's absolutely amazing. And they are crime writers, crime thrillery things. I've never read anything that they've written before, but I know they're quite popular because a lot of their books do, or Nikki French's books, do go out from the library. So I thought I would give one a go, and I bought The Memory Game. And I got all of these signed, so that's quite exciting. So why do we ask people to write their names in books? I don't know. So that was really a really good talk, and I really enjoyed it. And this is their first book, but it really sounded interesting, so that was definitely one to give a go. And then after that, I went to a writing workshop with a woman called Rosie Thornton, and that was really good and really interesting as well. It was about looking at place and where we set our stories and the way we describe setting, how much detail we use, what do we want the readers to notice about the settings. And I find that quite difficult, actually. I'm confident with dialogue and I'm happy with people talking to each other, but I don't want to be too boring or too cliche when it comes to describing a setting, especially in nature, where you have got so many cliches about the birds singing and the wind rustling the trees and the smell of the salt at the seaside and all that kind of stuff. So that was really quite good. Sadly, it was only an hour, which isn't an awful amount of time to do a workshop, but it was really interesting. And of course, I bought one of her books, and it's set in Suffolk. These are short stories, Rosie Thornton, Sandlands. And the stories are set in Suffolk, which is where I live and where Felixstowe is as well. And I like local things set in places that I probably could recognise. So I'm quite interested to read that one. And then after that, I saw Mandy Morton being interviewed by Nicola Upson. And Nicola Upson is a crime writer, and I've seen her before. And Mandy Morton, she came and did a talk at the library ages ago, and I've not heard of her, but she writes stories, crime stories, but involving cats. So there are no people, just cats. And I do have two of her books. Here's the first one, the #2 Feline Detective Agency, and I don't know where the other one is, But I do have those ones. I've not read them yet, and I do want to. It's just getting around to it. But she has written a third one, and she was talking about that and her inspiration and why she prefers using cats over people, and just some of the puns and the funny, clever twists of language she has when she writes. It's very funny, and she read some out, and you just have to recognise these little puns and these little clever ways she twists and manipulates language and words. So that was really good. So I bought The Death of Downton Abbey by Mandy Morton. Sadly, the cover isn't in the same style. The first two look like this with the panel across the middle and colour. I don't know where my other one is. I've got too many books. I'm probably staring right at it but can't see it. So yeah, so unfortunately the covers don't match up, but it's really what's about inside. So I picked up that one. And I will get around to reading the series because she's written another one as well. And then after that, I saw two debut novelists, S.E. Craythorne and Megan Bradbury, and they both went to university in Norwich, which is another local place. And they were just talking about their journey and their process to becoming published after having done a master's in creative writing, and how long it's taken them and the journey that they've gone through to get to this stage. Megan Bradbury's book didn't really appeal to me. It was kind of a part fact, part fictionalised account of different things happening in New York City, and it just didn't stand out to me. So I didn't pick up her book, but I did pick up S.E. Craythorne's book, How You See Me, because it sounds a bit dark and a bit psychological and that kind of thing. So that was really, really good. And then, to end the day, we went to see a guy talk about the most haunted pubs and... most haunted pubs and... not hotels. Theatres? Hang on. Yes, the most haunted pubs and the most haunted theatres in the UK. I don't believe in ghosts. So, although he was saying all these things were happening, I just think it's the wind creaking and the... doors slamming and all that kind of stuff. So, but it was quite interesting the way he'd kind of gone around the country visiting all these places and hearing all these stories. So that ended the day on Saturday. And sadly, the weather was quite rubbish this weekend. It was thunderstorms, showers, rain, drizzle. Oh, not as lovely as it was last year. Last year we sat down the beach and it was really, really beautiful. So because we knew Sunday was going to be quite terrible, we went for a walk down the beach in the evening because my friends hadn't been to Felixstowe before. And the beach is really nice down in Felixstowe. Sadly, it was about 11 o'clock at night, so it was really dark and you couldn't really see much. But that evening, the weather was quite nice. It wasn't too cold, and we sat down on the seafront and had a bit of a picnic. Because it's quite difficult to eat when you're at these festivals because you've got things all over the place, and a lot of times your lunch is being taken up with going to all these talks and buying all these books. So we had quite a late lunch when we all had a break, and then we went and had a little bit of a picnic down on the beach. And then we stayed in the hotel where most of the events were happening, and it was lovely. It was a really nice room. The bed was a little bit too short for me. I am quite tall. But that didn't stop me having a really nice sleep. And then a really good breakfast in the morning. I ate enough to feed a family, I think. I had bacon and sausages and hash browns and fruit and pastries and toast. And oh, it was absolutely lovely. And then Sunday, for me, started with a talk with 3 crime writers, crime thriller. And they were talking about a thing called domestic noir. And the title of the talk was Home is Where the Hurt Is. And they were talking about how most murders and most crimes take place in the home. So children get snatched by family members. People get killed by their husbands or wives or partners. It's fascinating, and the statistics they give about how many people die within their own family and within their own home because of situations and things that are going on, and it is really, really fascinating. So we had 3 authors speaking about that. Ruth Dugdale, who I've met a few years ago, and she was kind of chairing the panel. Elizabeth Haynes and Julia Crouch, who I'd not heard of before. But it was really, really interesting, and they don't just focus on domestic violence in the way that we kind of envisage it, the men beating up the women. They look at it across the whole spectrum. So there are dangerous women, there are women who commit crimes within the home. And so that was really, really interesting. And of course I had to buy books by all three of them. So I bought Humber Boy B by Ruth Dugdale. I've read one book by Ruth Dugdale called The Sacrificial Man, and that was really good. It's about cannibalism. It's quite dark and frightening. So I got that one. I got Into the Darkest Corner by Elizabeth Haynes, and this one was selected for the Specsavers TV Book Club 2012. So I've read a few things like that, and they're always quite good, quite gripping. And then Cuckoo by Julia Crouch, and this one sounds really, really good. Kind of a bit stalkerish, a bit dark, a bit sinister, I think. So I'm looking forward to reading these ones. And then after that, I wasn't going to go and see the next act. I can't remember why. It just didn't kind of stand out to me. But it was Martin Newell, and he's a poet, and I have seen him before. He came to my university and did a performance there. Oof. Don't even want to think how old I am. Many, many years ago. And he was good. He is an Essex poet. And he was there with the Hosepipe Band. And he'd written 2 quite long poems, and the band were playing music that went along with his poems. And the first one was about Black Shuck, and that's a local legend around here. It's about a black dog, like a demon devil dog, that kind of comes and haunts the local area. Again, I don't believe in ghosts, but every place has its own kind of folk tales and all that kind of stuff. And the music was quite folky and interesting, and one of the women had so many strange instruments. She had this weird bagpipe thing and these hammery things. I don't know, I'm not a musician, but it was quite good. So I bought their CD. So I managed to not buy so many books. But yeah, that was really good. So I bought their CD. And then to end the day and the weekend, we saw a spoken word poet who had me in tears from both laughing too much and some really emotional and poignant poetry. And that was Holly McNish. And she has written a book, and it's a giant, huge tome. It's huge. It's called Nobody Told Me, and it's about her journey to motherhood and about being pregnant and then the time after giving birth and dealing with her child and dealing with society and all this kind of stuff. And she started off with a poem that is just so amazing. She was saying her daughter was toddling, and she stood there naked in front of the mirror, and she was just looking at herself, fascinated by this naked body. And Holly was saying how as soon as you've had a baby, you're expected to get your body back to shape. And we all are expected to fit into these moulds of what a body should look like, how smooth our skin should be, how fat or thin, or what colour we should be, all of this stuff. And we shouldn't. We should just be happy with our own bodies. And she said she was watching her daughter, who was just fascinated by her own body and was happy with it. You know, a toddler at 2 or however old she was, just knew what she could see, and that was it. And she had a pot belly and chubby legs, and all of that stuff didn't bother her. And Holly was saying how it just frustrates her so much that she's expected to have a certain body type and a certain body shape, even though she's a mother and she's got stretch marks and she's got lines and wrinkles and cracks all over her skin. Why should she be ashamed of that? She's given birth, she's a mother. And that really made me cry, because it was like, we are so preoccupied with this ideal image of how we should be that we don't just take a look at ourselves in the mirror and say, yeah, this is what I look like and I look good. So that was a brilliant end to the whole festival, and the room was packed out for her, and it was just absolutely amazing. At the end, I just rushed to the book stand and bought the book because I knew there would be a queue. So that was, I cannot stress enough what an amazing weekend it was. And I've seen people I've never seen before, and I spoke to people I'd never spoken to before, and it was really nice because all the authors were really friendly and they were walking around the hotel, so you'd see them have a chit chat. It was really, really good fun, and I'm really looking forward to what they've got planned for next year. But before then, I will buy myself a new bookcase, because I thought, I know I'm going to buy a couple of books. I didn't realise I'd buy 8 and a CD. Oh, I can't keep going on like this. I'm gonna drown under a sea of books. But it was so fun, I don't care. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna find some space for my books and try and read some. So have a good day, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.